Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the September 15th, 2025 meeting of the Town of Richmond Select Board. I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we meet on the ancestral land of the Western Abenaki, Benvakina. We honor their history and presence and recognize the disruptions of colonization. With gratitude and humility, we are thankful to live and work here, and we affirm that all are welcome. We also recognize that those of us gathered here today are ourselves descendants of immigrants, and we share a responsibility to treat this place and each other with respect. So welcome to the meeting. We begin with public comment. Mary?
Mary Houle. Just as important as your sign out front, your sign, and the reason that it's there, and the reason the political movement was created, I would like to acknowledge the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk. At 31 years old, he leaves a beautiful wife and two lovely children. I would like to acknowledge his passing, and I'm so sorry for the loss for our country. Thank you.
Deaths by gun violence are always upsetting and terrible in their effect. I completely agree with you. Okay, any other public comment from anyone online or in person? Okay. Are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, our first item will be brief, and then we will move on to our star, Charlie over there. We will not be taking public comment on the first agenda item. I simply wish to state that some residents of Richmond have been receiving letters falsely claiming to be from the Select Board, Police Governance Committee, or the town office in some way, shape, or form. These letters are addressed as having come from here when they did not, and they contain essentially hate speech, depicting Black Lives Matter members as rioters who are setting things on fire and saying this is what the Select Board endorses. I just want to stress that those letters are not from the Select Board, nor from any part of the Richmond town government. And the USPS Inspector General and our local police department are investigating. At least 2 crimes were committed by those. They're not crimes that are typically prosecuted, but nonetheless, anybody who gets something and goes, gee, is this really from the Select Board? No, it's not.
And I would just say, if you do get something, please let myself or Sergeant Cohen know. We are keeping a file basically of everyone that's been receiving something.
Right. Okay. Moving on to happier topics.
That item for the Select Board public discussion was not warned that it was not going to be a public discussion.
We will not be taking public comment on this. You can sue us later.
Jay, that's
No, Kara, listen, we know you love attention. You crave it, but right now we're going to move on into Charlie Baker's presentation. Charlie is the Executive Director of the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission.
Select Board's going to allow
I mean,
him to treat people.
Yeah.
I do. Because
Okay, I will retract that. I will retract that.
Acknowledge that.
I'm trying my hardest for people in this community.
You are in a power position of superiority. Well,
Jay, I'm just gonna make a brief statement when I get a moment.
Go ahead.
I've been on this board since 2014. I've been in that chair. I've been in the vice chair position. I have moderated meetings in this building after deaths at Huntington Gorge, after an officer-involved shooting, after contentious personnel issues with town staff, with issues that have divided the town. And every one of those meetings that I moderated, the temperature in the room was really high at the beginning of the meeting. And I gave people a right to speak, and people had differing opinions, but people were civil. And at the conclusion of the meeting, we would come to a decision that everybody would respect, everybody would be happy with, we'd move on. And I'd give my standard little speech of how proud I was to live in a community where people could have differing opinions, differing ideas, different backgrounds, different beliefs, but we could come together as a community and work through issues. And I don't know what the hell is going on, but that's not the community that I live in today.
Okay.
I have people calling me, swearing at me. I've been harassed at the transfer station. I've been heckled at the market. I've been heckled at the post office. I've been heckled at the hardware store. I have people honking the horn, flipping the bird, screaming obscenities at me. This is not Richmond. If anybody has any issue with anything that I do or this board does, please call me. I will buy you a cup of coffee at Sweet Simone's. I will meet you anywhere. I will have a conversation with you. But damn it, I do not like living in a community that has become this divisive, this nasty, this mean, this partisan. It needs to stop.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I will be calling Karen to apologize. In fact, I might ask for a short recess to try to call her now.
Hey, why don't we take a brief recess? I don't know if she's still in the parking.
15 minutes, 10 minutes?
Can you look up and see if she's in her?
Your opinion is valuable. I do not take that lightly.
So yeah, why don't we take a 15-minute recess?
Come back at.
Well, the camera's going, community, this needs to stop. Everybody just needs to dial it down, be civil. I mean, I'm being harassed for mailings that I don't even know existed. This is not Richmond.
Can I just, we're in recess or whatever. You remember a little contentious time when Mary Hull was chairman of the select board and we had an issue with the chief of police? We met on September 11th and Jeff Urbanek was the town manager at the time. And I sat through that and I took every sling and arrow, more than anybody in this, you guys could even imagine. Because it is precious. It was the first time in the history of this man's entire career, he got an average evaluation and he threw a hissy fit. He's the one that got the town upset at that time, not me. I was chairman of the select board when the town manager was having an affair with the financial director and 2 members of the board knew about it. And I got a call from the administrator's wife, New Year's Eve, saying, you, Mary, on the select board when I was chair, I knew all about it. I knew nothing about it, but the 2 men on the select board were well aware of it. So I've taken more than any of you, but you know what? I'm still standing. And I appreciate your service, all of you, because none of it's easy.
Thank you, Mary. And now that this door is open, I don't know if I've ever told you that I appreciate that we have differing points of view, but we can have a serious conversation, a frank conversation, voices could be elevated, but the next day you'll hold the door for me at the post office and life goes on. And I really respect that.
Karen declined to state my apology. I will state for the public that I was extremely out of line there. We all get frustrated at times, but that does not justify in any way my snapping at a member of the public as I did.
Thank you, Jay. I'm just going to go back to my original statement, ask everybody to just lower the temperature.
Right. There is no excuse for a member of the select board snapping at a member of the public, even if the member of the public is sometimes frustrating.
Jay, you can't make excuses about
No, I'm not
this.
making excuses.
No, you can't go apologize to her, come back and say she declined your apology in a snide way, and then say that
I'm
there's no
not trying to
excuse
make an
except for
excuse.
that's how it comes across.
Okay, well, I respect that too.
Okay, so just if you want to let it go, let it go. If not, don't. But don't do this pretending we're letting it go and then chipping away at it. So
No,
what I was
trying to say is there's no justification, even if. There's no justification if they're the nice.
So just say the no, so say, take the accountability and say there's no justification and let that rest of it go. Because when you say even if, it implies that the accountability for there being no justification isn't with you.
There's no excuse whatsoever for having replied that way.
Perfect.
And there isn't. I should have kept my mouth shut.
Can I
Okay,
just,
before you start, are we sure we're ready to start? 'Cause we could still take a couple minutes to breathe and
We did
relax.
tell everyone we got till 7:21.
slow us all down.
Okay,
Got 12 minutes. We told people to be back. I don't know if people tuned out if we want to
Can I,
on to
do
this.
some jumping.
sorry, I just want to say something. So I went down and talked to Kara for a little bit. And I think what she was going to say was important, so maybe at another meeting. She was going to say that she's received letters like that before, so from the same group, so there might be some,
Okay.
you know, just stuff that you might want to look into with her.
The reason I replied as I did is that it is stated clearly on the agenda that it was a statement.
Yep.
A statement is not a matter for discussion.
But Josh, you and Officer Cohen might want to connect with her and just see if there's a connection.
Thanks, yeah.
Okay, to return to our agenda. Our first item, our second item is presentation of the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission Annual Report. Executive Director, Mr. Charlie Baker, is here with us tonight.
Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you. Glad to be with you, and thank you for making time on your agenda. This is my annual customer service check-in with the town, with the select board specifically. You got a report, think it was in your packet, yeah. No, yeah, no worries. I'm gonna skim pretty quickly through it. But the first page gives you background. Actually, I think everybody was here last time I was here. I'm gonna go even quicker. And it also talks a little bit about our finances and how we leverage local dues to bring in state and federal funds. Thank you to your reps that were on our board and committees last year and this year. And just of note, you are probably aware, but Bard is now our board chair for the Regional Planning Commission. So take advantage of that. If you have any more issues that we can help with. The second page has projects that we worked on with the town last year, Cochrane Road scoping. Of course, we worked on the regional plan map in compliance with Act 181, energy planning, water quality, a variety of technical assistance on land use issues, on transportation issues, emergency management, some traffic counts. But happy to take any feedback on any of these services, anything we could have done better, or any more things that were good. Or if not, happy to move on also.
I was very happy with all the work that you did that crossed my desk, and I thank you and your staff for all that. You guys are always very responsive, especially when we have a lot of traffic concerns, traffic studies. I just recently saw the phase corner study landed from Jason did that one.
Okay.
So I'll be looking at that shortly. So I really appreciate all the assistance you guys provide us. And I think the one that was closest to was the Cochrane Road study.
Yeah.
It was a great team to work with from CCRPC as well as the engineering firm. I think they did a really good job putting that together and delivering it to the select board.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jess. We really do appreciate the partnership with the town, and and I always do try to say, we do think of us as supplemental staff to your staff. Particularly for smaller towns, you can't have as many people to address as many issues as you like. So we are there to help whenever we can. The next section on top of page 2 just reviews what you have in the capital program for the state and in our transportation improvement program. Most of these, I think, are done, or felt like they were done. Most of the Route 2 stuff. I don't know if is there a little bit more still happening?
Bridge over 89 is done.
Yeah.
Is that the culvert? That's the one down by.
Oh, you got one culvert rehab that's coming.
I think that's
Yep.
still coming, right?
Yep.
US2 resurfacing is completed. But yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, like Meatloaf said.
That was just a paving project.
Paving in the bridge, yeah.
Just a paving project, yes.
Just.
Yeah, and it is, it was $40 million just, but it's other people's money, so, well, or maybe it's all of our money. And it is interesting just with VTrans, where Chittenden County is kind of going through a peak investment period, which, we probably hadn't had in 20 years, but, this was a major investment here on Route 2. They're working on exit 16, they're working on exit 17, and then the Champlain Connector Parkway in Burlington. So, I can already feel it. VTrans is kind of like, okay, we put a lot of money in Chittenden County these few years. We'll go down the wave after that. So just it's not that they don't spend any more money here, but it's just it's all hundreds
This
of
pace
millions.
isn't going to continue.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Turning the last, I think 3 pages are regional activities. A lot of time from our staff has been on the regional plan this past year. A lot of time on community engagement, housing issues, energy, more transportation and clean water, emergency management. Happy to take any questions on any of these regional topics or get any feedback on any of those if you have any, but that is really the end of my report. I do have a couple other kind of 2 or 3 reminder type top issues. One is we do a work program requests for applications every winter, comes out around Thanksgiving. It's due back, late January. So just a heads up on that. I'm sure Josh and Keith will be on top of that and let us know if the town has any requests for FY27, which numbers keep getting bigger year after year. Secondly, and I'm trying to remember if I'm not sure if one of you came, but we hosted a meeting with VLCT for select board chairs and maybe town managers back in like June. About 20 folks showed up and there was interest in us doing that periodically. So just a heads up, I think I may try to offer the opportunity for select board chairs or designee. We don't want to get into quorum issues with the towns, but to meet, maybe the end of October or early November. So that's the second item. And then the third item is, of course, the legislative session, second year of the biennium is coming up. If you do have any legislative issues, things that ought to be addressed in statute, this is a good time of year to let me know. We do have a legislative breakfast early December where we try to get legislators together and talk about any key issues. One of the key issues, they've been talking a lot about housing and these growth areas and things. I think one of the key issues going forward is going to be just investment in infrastructure to support that. And they did that CHIP investment tool last year, but it's just going to be, I'm sure, just a recurring demand on infrastructure needs. So, but if you do have any other things for the legislature, please let me know. And you don't have to do that, but just if I could help, I'm happy to.
Okay.
Awesome.
Any questions for Charlie from people on the Zoom call? Okay, Charlie, thank you so much. I understand you've got now to race down to the Huntington meeting.
Or up, as I like to think about it, but yeah. Uphill anyway.
Depends on whether it's latitude or altitude.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. But thank you very much and appreciate working with you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is a very quick informational item. We will field questions about it if there are some. As everybody in town knows, the Route 2 bridge over I-89 southeast of the fire station has been an ongoing project for quite some time. The project appeared to have been done some months ago, but technically speaking, there were still minor aspects of the project that were still open. We have received word from VTrans that the final parts of the project are in fact complete. And the bridge has been, well, it's been beautifully built. All the striping and signage and barriers and railings and so forth have been put in. And I hope this bridge will last us for many years to come. That said, chapter next, the state is beginning the discussion process for the I-89 bridge over Jericho Road. As you know, we have several bridges that involve I-89 crossing town roads. That will be the next one that they're going to be working on. They have already sent surveys to town government asking for information about the road, such as, what use Jericho Road is put to, how will it be impacted by construction? And it probably won't be starting for several years. I don't know, 2, 3.
I'd say at least.
Okay.
They're also looking at the bridges down near the interchange, over Kenyon Road, over the Winooski and Johnny Brook, and over Furr Lane and the railroad tracks. We filled out questionnaires for them about this time last year for those bridges. I haven't heard anything since on those, but I think they send those out several years in advance in the early stages of the planning process. But those would be the 4 bridges that are sort of next on the list for Richmond, pending funding, as Charlie just covered.
Okay. Any questions about this from members of the board? Any questions about the bridges from members of the public? I see a hand going up. Great to hear. I'm sorry, I should put my glasses on when I wish to read text.
Great to hear that the Canyon Road bridges are on the radar.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, seeing no other comment, we'll now move on to item D on the agenda. This is follow-up to the possibility of creating a Union Municipal District to provide police services to Richmond and Hinesburg.
Hey, Josh. Jay, sorry. It's Jean Haskin. I
Go ahead.
couldn't figure out how to raise my hand. I don't know, did something here, but anyhow, just a quick question on the previous issue about the bridges. Are those gonna, is the funding for those going to be put to a vote so that everybody in town will get a chance to vote on that?
So this would be VTrans money. It wouldn't be.
State and federal.
Yeah, state and federal. It won't be town
Okay.
money for those
And so-
bridges.
So
Good question.
it doesn't impact the taxpayers' money at all?
It will not.
Okay, perfect.
I
That's
mean,
all.
Now that will, right,
The
yeah.
state level.
Your state income taxes will be affected or state gas taxes.
I don't make any money, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
And Chelsea, to answer your question in the chat, did we add the public comments from a few meetings back that reply to VTrans? Yeah, I modified the reply to VTrans based on that meeting. Regarding the school and summer camp traffic as well as widening pedestrian traffic. Yes, I included both of those in the feedback to VTrans.
Okay. Our next item on the agenda, thanks, Jean, and I'm sorry you weren't able to unmute. We have discussed policing at many, many meetings. And at a recent meeting, we evaluated whether we would be better off trying to create a Union Municipal District with town of Hinesburg to jointly pay for and operate police services. The other alternative we discussed at that time was hiring a chief of our own and beginning to work on building our department. A very short amount of time after that meeting, the town of Hinesburg Select Board met and I believe officially said for now, they are not interested in forming a Union Municipal District.
Yeah, they decided that they'd like to focus on their own department, hiring a chief and growing their department back up to their budgeted amount. It sounded like they'd be interested in a municipal district or some sort of cooperation down the road, but not right now. And from the last meeting, it looked like our select board was more interested in, well, if we're gonna do it, let's look into it now. So I think that brings us to a point now with Hinesburg where we know that, they're gonna wait, so we don't have a willing partner right there at this time. I don't know, do you wanna?
We had talked briefly about, well, could we involve other towns? Huntington, Bolton, etc. And they don't currently have police departments, so they would be, if we're providing the police staff and they're to some extent helping pay for it, they would be, I guess, what was the phrase used, kind of junior partners?
Yeah, I guess it'd be, well, when I think my concern was, right now we have a police budget. So if there was to be a new municipal district, we at least have a budget that we've been taxing for that would sort of get transferred.
Yes, it wouldn't be starting from zero budget wise like it would be for a lot of those towns.
That's
So
exactly.
it's a steeper hill to climb.
I think so. Yeah, and I know that I had talked to some folks in Bolton. I think a select board member called me 3 or 4 years ago when we were starting to talk with Hinesburg about it, that they might be somewhat interested. But how that would exactly fit financially and coverage wise, I'm not really sure. I think it would be important to get it going with another town that already has a police department. So we, the two that would sort of make sense if we wanted to look into any other towns would be Williston or maybe Essex Town. They're not terribly far away. So we could put some feelers out to see what their thoughts might be for a long-term partnership. If the board wanted to do that, we could explore that. I do feel though that it took us 2+ years of working with Hinesburg and talks before that to then getting into contracts to become familiar, and then the Union Municipal District idea or cooperation kind of fell apart after that. So it feels a little bit robotic, bit like we'd be going back to square one and trying to do those years of exploration over again. But then again, if we don't start now, that much further down the road. So I guess if we wanted to do that, we could, talk to Willis and talk to Essex Town or anywhere else that the board felt they might want to do. But we also have to figure out what we want to do here in the short term. Matt will fill in as interim chief. But I think we need to make a decision about, do we go out for a chief search, hire a full-time chief, and sort of what's our what's our short-term goal and how does that dovetail in with our long-term goal? And how are we transparent about that with any new hires we might make from chief to officer?
Mhm.
Thoughts?
I like the idea of talking to Williston. I feel like that's a good place to at least put our feelers out to, because they have a good sized department. It feels like they're pretty stable. They tend to help us, I think, otherwise. We talked at one point last meeting about how it would be good to get like more of an official mentor for Sergeant Cohen. I think that that is something that we should do as well, to support him through that. And then we talked a little bit about a part-time, someone to serve as chief part-time. I also am open to that idea too, if there's an opportunity for someone who's maybe working elsewhere but could do part-time here, and wanted to kind of boost their career in that way. I think those are all good options.
We need to find a creative solution to get out of this. Unfortunately, surrounding towns are in the same position that Richmond is in, only not to the same extent, where everybody's short-staffed, everybody's short of resources. So if I was on the select board in a neighboring town, or if I was the chief of police in a neighboring town, I would have to really look kindly on Richmond knocking on my door saying, can you help us? Because obviously they want their departments to be whole before sharing resources, but we're at their mercy. So, it is an uphill climb, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't knock on the door and ask the questions.
Yeah, what are we budgeted for right now for officers? 4 officers and a half, 50% chief.
Correct.
So I guess my only concern with this is that if we were also talking about adjusting pay, which I think is a reasonable thing we're going to need to do, because being at the mean or median in pay and trying to staff up is not, just simply doesn't work. I mean, maybe policing is different, but I know in like construction, if you are at the mean or median in pay, you're not going to gain any people, and you're certainly not going to gain,
Talent.
it's not that you won't find people, things happen and people move around a little bit, but you're not going to all of a sudden attract a bunch of talent. It's not how it works. So we're talking about adding 50% chief pay simply to get to full-time and adjusting all the pay and all that, and still having a many month to year lag to even get a full staff department. Like, so we're talking about doing that over multiple budget seasons and multiple budget votes.
Mhm.
So I guess I just don't, knowing that the tax situation is probably not going to be a ton easier this year than last year. We can talk about doing all kinds of stuff, but if we don't take that into account, we're really setting ourselves up to run into a brick wall. Not made out of money, actual bricks. So I don't know, just sheer budget wise, I don't know. I think that narrows our options significantly, just to be practical about it. And I don't know if that looks like a smaller department, if that looks like different kinds of collaboration, if that looks like kind of, I think the model with Sergeant Cohen, having an officer or two, and then, growing his capabilities or someone's capabilities is great. I know I always like to grow talent from within, because you get to feel that person out instead of hiring someone in and hoping that everything's shaped. You hope you know what you're getting, and also you've kind of worked together, you've built that reputation. But it just doesn't seem like we're going to attract a chief that meets all of our criteria for a price that we can afford in a time frame that we like. And so what are those things are we going to give up? And it's probably going to be more than just one of them that we're going to have to be very flexible on.
JSC Officer Cohen is here. I just want to say this. I said it at the last meeting, but I'm going to say it again. Thank you, Officer Cohen, for sticking with us, navigating this field. Obviously, you've got a front row seat, and we're just sort of watching. But I think it's worth mentioning that the town and this board support you and appreciate you. And I really want to emphasize we're very honored that you're continuing to serve with us and watch us try to navigate this, and also help us navigate this. You've been very helpful over the last year as things come up, applying creative solutions to problems. So I want you to know that we're behind you, and I want to appreciate what this must look like through your eyes.
Can I follow up on that quick before you call in, Mary? I just want to say, what I would add to that is that I'm also impressed by you. I mean, I think in my mind, when you were hired, I didn't know you well. I wasn't part of the hiring process or anything, but I thought we were hiring like a nice qualified candidate to be a police officer. And I don't think that's what we got. I think we got someone who's really turning into an excellent leader and kind of being visionary in this process. And that's really impressive. And that's part of what's making me want to like see that as an option to promote from within, because I think that this is an ideal situation.
I do appreciate your support and town support that we have gotten as a department. As you know, it is a tough time for all of us to go through, not just myself inside the department. And I know we're all trying to come up with a solution for what we have in front of us. When you guys are thinking about recruiting, I've ran a couple of fun numbers because I had that in my head. It cost us about $7,500 a month in just salary and benefits while we're training new officers. And that's a large investment. I mean, it's typically 6 months to 9 months in training that we will invest in a person. That's roughly $45,000 to $65,000 in training that we invest into that person. And when we are looking at compensation packages towards and trying to recruit new people, you got to take that training that's already been established in them into account. If we want to get qualified people, we can put that investment into their compensation package rather than putting it into training them. But there is also a benefit to training a new officer where we can mold them in a way that matches the needs and the values of the community. So there's two sides to that coin.
Sure.
And Mary?
Yeah, thank you. Mary Hull. I wonder if there's any possibility, hi Sergeant Cohen, that we might find a way to elevate Sergeant Cohen to chief by offering classes wherever the Police Chiefs Association is. What you said, Adam, about promoting from within, Sergeant Cohen has come to know the community, and things seem to be working out well. Thank God he's decided to stick with us. But I had mentioned this before, and I think I had a conversation with Sergeant Cohen about not about becoming chief, but that would be awesome. Get the training necessary to become chief and then stay here. Is there possible for us to turn into a training center? It over the past, I've seen 20 years of this stuff come and go. If we just say, okay, they come and go. So why don't we ride the direction our horse is headed? If you're going to train somebody up and then they leave, we're going to be known as a training center. Then become a training center. Some town says we've got 3 officers that are coming in, train them how to do this, that, and back roads. I mean, the worst thing is being alone on a dark road in Richmond, as far as I'm concerned. It's not always the wildlife that you have to be afraid of. But it seems to me that would be a good place to start. It's like, hey, Richmond's going to become a training center. We should have had Charlie Baker stay for this, because municipal planning might have something to do with it. And when I was on the select board, there was a study that was done, and there wasn't a possibility that there was going to be a municipal program for municipal policing. But it seems like that's what we're left with. We have to do this. But if there's any way that Sergeant Cohen would be interested in it, and if we can afford, we can't afford not to, let's put it that way. We can't afford not to offer something for Sergeant Cohen to become a chief. Investment in the community, he's already done that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very much, Mary. I like what you said. Is there anybody else on the Zoom or here in the room who would like to comment on future directions for the Richmond Police Department?
I'll make one more comment. I think, like I said this last time, our #1 goal is to make sure that we keep Sergeant Cohen with us, and we all really appreciate you. I don't think we say it enough every meeting, but we would be talking the whole time about you if we did. And I think with that, there's a bunch of different things to explore here. I think that if there is the ability to get a mentor in place, that will help regardless of the direction that we go in, and I think will help from a training perspective. I know that you had mentors that you've had before, and there might be someone that you already have, but getting something in place to support you there in the role that you're in. And then like the interim chief role, essentially. And then on top of that, when I say that I think we should put feelers out with Williston, I don't mean in the same essence that we had put out with Hinesburg. I mean in like, how can we, is there contract support? Is there another model that would help us in the meantime as we kind of like transition into our new space? Because I don't think that it would make sense for us to do the same type of thing with Williston as we were trying to do with Hinesburg, but I think there could be something else that allows us to support Sergeant Cohen in the right way and allows us to get to wherever we want to go. I don't really know what that looks like, but worth a conversation.
It seems like we could use some form of contract coverage at bare minimum, just
Yeah.
so that he is covered. I mean, I know
Exactly.
probably doesn't want to work 24/7 or, so we have coverage and we have, you know, I would assume that neighboring departments will still come and back you up if an emergency situation happened where you needed backup. But to formalize that or maybe, make it so you had that option for backup when it wasn't necessarily a life and death situation, but you needed help. Or coverage when you need to take a vacation like everyone does. And then, so short term, we got that, and then we could, sounds like we need to really, in my mind, we need to figure out where we actually think we can get to. Kind of time frame and budget wise with our department, and is a full-time chief and 4 officers literally in the budget right now. And I think we need to come up with a really, like, based on how we're going to, what we think we're going to do for pay adjustments and what we think we actually need to pay a chief and all that, come up with what we really can or want to afford, and then work towards that. And then do those 2 things in, you know, contract coverage short term, figure that all out and start working towards that. I feel like as we staff up a department in some capacity and make progress, surrounding towns will see that and we'll have options to partner. I mean, it's hard to partner when we have aspirations for 4 officers and the chief, and we have had 1 officer for year, and a lot of opportunities have presented themselves and fallen apart for Richmond. And just, I know in my own business and dealings and stuff, and when I see that happening, it raises my hairs a little bit, and I would want to see it stabilize if I was a neighboring town. So I can understand why people would want to see ours, everything stabilized so that we could be an equal partner. It doesn't really feel like we can do that at this moment, so.
Yeah, and we did start to look into a little bit with neighboring towns for short-term coverage. Initial feedback, I talked to the Wilson manager. Sounds like they've got already more work than their current budgeted staff can handle. But he said he'd be willing to talk a little bit more about it, so I think we talk and see. Sergeant Cohen reached out to the sheriff's department today to get some initial feedback. They might be willing to provide some patrol coverage. It was sort of initial conversation. They might also be able to provide some calls, coverage for calls for service while they're patrolling here. We're also going to try to reach out to Essex Town, since they're somewhat close by, to see what they might be able to provide in the short term as well. Again, sort of very preliminary conversations. We can probably have a better update for that on October 6th, which is our next meeting.
It also seems like a good opportunity to feel out working with the different towns too.
And
That's what we did with Hinesburg. How do we start to slowly kind of see that it will be
They
in the
can
short term?
feel out, you know, both us as a town administration and select board, and also just the geography of the town, and if it all works. And with Essex, for example, it might seem ridiculous and it actually works well, or it might seem like it's doable.
Relationship with them.
Yeah, but I mean, like, as far as response and stuff, it might seem, oh, it'll work fine, and then, you know, in practice, it doesn't work or whatever, so we can feel all that out.
I'll ask again, is there anyone on the call who would like to weigh in? Okay. Real quick, before we move on to the next item. I would just like to mention, I did not want to be chair. That does not mean that I'm entitled to lash out or say irritable things, that I'm doing this under protest, but part of the reason I didn't want to be chair is because I don't think that I handled the frustration of the job as well as I ought.
It can be hard.
And I think it would be wise if I resign as chair. However, the reason
Right now, or do you want to discuss it at the end of the meeting, or?
well, the reason I'm doing it now is because by the end of the meeting, there may be very few people on the call.
Okay.
And I simply wanted to let them know that this is not the first time, this is at least the second time that I've grown so irritated that I've shown what an asset, for one of a better
I
phrase.
appreciate your self-reflection and acknowledging that, Jay. That's
Well,
very big of you. Not,
the only reason I would not just, there are two reasons I'm not gonna resign and walk to the end of the table right now is one, it would kind of leave the vice chair in the lurch because I have all the information about the agenda items and I don't know if you want to jump in. The second reason is that I don't know who else wants it. I don't want to be chair anymore. I don't think I'm the right person to be chair. Bart is not here to speak up. And at the start of this term, this sense was that Adam has child care issues, may not have the time, and Caitlin was just starting. But I think now that this far into the term, it would be worth exploring whether one of them or David or Bart would like to take over. I will not be at the next meeting. I will be out of the country. And so this is something that I think people should think about. I'll just ask right now, is there anybody who would be willing to act? Adam, would you be willing to step up and take chair? Or
yeah, I'd probably do that. I don't think, when this most recent election happened, it was only a year in and a lot of stuff was up in the air. A lot of the personal stuff has calmed down a little bit by choice, and I'm also a little more comfortable. Just the mechanics of doing it, I think.
I think you're also,
That said, I think, would you fit, I would be happy if you would finish out the meeting this evening. And
I
I'll-
will.
Okay.
But I think as of the end of the meeting, I will resign as chair.
Okay, and then so for the mechanics of that, would we then at the next meeting, the first item would be to elect a new chair and vice chair? Is that how that works?
That would be.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds like a comment.
Yes.
Mary Holt, thank you for having the courage to have the discussion in public. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. That's actually really, I really appreciate that. I'm sure many of the people.
Well, it's probably no consolation to Kara. But the behavior exhibited is simply not acceptable.
Kara has strong opinions and stuff, but I think she will appreciate that you chose to do this in public and that you were reflecting on it. So I think that's best outcome.
Thank you.
Jay, first of all, thank you for the self-awareness. It's hard to
Agreed.
recognize when we're less than perfect, but more importantly, don't beat yourself up over this. I've had many sleepless nights because I've said things out of anger while sitting in that chair that I never meant to say. And I feel horribly about that, but it happened.
But the difference is that you always kept your cool. In public.
Not always,
Well, regardless. You did, but you've generally done a much better job than I have.
but I've tried to learn. I've made a lot of mistakes, but I try to learn.
Well, I think my role is best suited to not chair. So again, I will finish out the meeting and then at the end of the meeting, I will be resigning as chair. Okay, so members of the public, my apologies to you and especially to Kara for my extremely inappropriate behavior. We will move on to item E on the agenda. Item E on the agenda is and pertains to the Black Lives Matter All Are Welcome Here sign. The select board recently voted to extend for comments. However, questions arose justifiably about whether we required a permit or zoning approval for that sign, because every other sign in town that of that size would require a permit. We have an opinion from our director of planning and zoning, Keith Oborn, which I will share with you. Are you going to show it? Sure. Okay, by all means, you share it. You need to turn off.
Yeah, you.
Well, no, I mean the.
Yeah, this part, I got you.
You make it as bigger. In essence, what the memo here is saying is the town does not require a permit or zoning approval per section 5.7 signs. Past practice was to require one, and as such a permit would be the consistent vehicle to ensure the sign is made of quality materials and is not obstructing traffic and or pedestrian safety. But at this point, the sign is legal as built unless the select board rescinds or modifies the previous approval. On the subject of process, the select board can direct us to provide some sort of alternate template if they wish, or pass a resolution that signs on town property require a zoning permit that indicates dimensions, materials, and location only. It is already a given that the select board must approve signs prior to placement on municipal property and can issue conditions on any particular sign. The above permit requirements are not part of the Richmond zoning regulations, but are an internal process that appears to have been instituted in the past. Questions or comments from members of the select board? Any questions or comments from members of the public, either on Zoom or here in person? Okay, well, I'm grateful for all of you staying to this point. We will now move on to our next agenda item. And this is one that I can see from the faces, from the names on the chat on the Zoom that quite a few of you are here to speak about. A little bit of recap. This item is about the idea of creating a special assessment district for Southview 3-acre stormwater permit. The impermeable surface up in Southview is partly owned by the residents up there, partly owned by the town. And it's been a legal quandary for some time about how do we wind up paying for the town's share and having the residents pay for their share, even if, in a lot of our opinion, the residents should not be made to bear that burden. Under the recently changed law that was passed during this most recent session and signed by the governor, in order to pass a special assessment district, 51 or 50.1, basically a majority of residents in the affected area would have to agree to be in such a district. And that has, up to this point, seemed unlikely. Who wants to vote more taxes on themselves? But we've heard from some of the people who are kind of leading the involvement up there that perhaps it would be possible. And Josh, I think I'll pass the ball to you to finish summarizing this.
I'm going to recuse myself.
No, sure. Thanks for the introduction to it. But basically what it was, our follow up with our attorney on exactly what process would that involve to get to a special assessment district. As you mentioned, we need 50% of the owners to sign a consent form agreeing that they would consent to the special assessment district. Once 50% of the property owners consent, the remaining property owners are then subject to the assessment. In order for an individual property to consent, all owners of the property must sign the form. So if you have a couple that owns the property, they both must sign the form. If only one does, then that property does not consent. The consent form needs to describe how the cost of improvements are to be appropriated among those in special assessment district. This apportionment must be fair in the light of the benefits received. With stormwater, one equitable way to appropriate the cost of each property would be each property's share of impervious surface. So in this instance, the impervious is 63.8% private, 36.2% town. So the 63.8% of the cost would be divided among the homeowners. It could be done based on the grand list value of each property or divided amongst all properties equally, assuming each property has roughly the same amount of impervious. The cost would then be spread out over a number of years based on the life of the improvements, broken into and the quarterly payments billed to the tax bills could be 10, 15, or 20-year payback. There would also be expected future maintenance built into that, so the town would have money for maintenance of the installments over the life of the installments. It is recommended to have the total cost of the project prior to creating the special assessment district, but it's not legally required. But having the total cost makes it much more likely property owners would consent because they would at least know what the total cost is going to cost them. So that kind of covers the mechanics of doing the special assessment district. How this relates back to the current grant funding that we have for the permitting and the initial engineering. We need to get a notice of intent in by October 1st. There's a couple of challenges with that date. About a month ago, we discussed this. We paused the engineering because we didn't want to be the sole permittees as the town. We would still be the sole permittees probably by October 1st because the likelihood of getting the special assessment district created in 2 weeks is pretty slim. And the engineering required to submit the NOI, I think, would actually take longer than 2 weeks at this point, because back in early August, he was saying it was going to take him like August into September to get that done. So I doubt we'll be able to get it in. We won't be able to get it in time for the funding. I have heard some discussion at the state level, they might extend that deadline, because we may not be the only town that's in that situation, but that is, at this point, not finalized.
Okay, so any questions from the board before we go to the Southview residents? Seeing none. Chelsea, you are welcome to have the floor.
I could actually, Chelsea, if you want me to, I can look at your comments. You want some clarification on the financial responsibility and maintenance responsibility. I keep hearing if it's in the town right away, the town pays for it and maintains it. Is this true? Or is it shared based on the ratio of impervious surface? If so, there's a problem with the current design. If that is legal ramifications and consequences. So yeah, right now the current design is that all the structures would be within the town right of way. However, the cost of the engineering, the permitting, and the ongoing maintenance would be shared by all permittees, which would be the homeowners as well as the town. And even though they're in the right of way, it's basically for the benefit of all owners of impervious, which are the homeowners in the town. I don't want to invite drug dealers to Richmond, neither do I, Gene. I'm not sure how that relates to stormwater. But maybe you could tell me how it does. And Chelsea can't speak verbally, so appreciate that. So hopefully, Chelsea, that answered your questions.
Are there any other people on the call?
Might be them. Settlement.
Oh.
By all means, please come up.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then we'll go to Sarah after Paige.
I didn't quite hear what you said, Josh, about how would you plan to divide up the cost per household? You said by grand list value, or
Yeah, so
I couldn't quite.
sure. No, I think there's a few different ways you can do it with special assessment district. I think like road frontage is one of them. Grand list value. You could also do it by the amount of impervious. So in this case, it might make sense to do it by the amount of impervious. We would probably, if that's the route we took, we'd probably want to dive in to see how much impervious does each individual property have, and is it fair to just do it equally, or are there some properties that pay more or less based on their amount of impervious?
Okay, thank you. So next question is a prior meeting a couple weeks ago when you discussed the Greystone engineering plan. It was said in that, and I apologize if I didn't understand this, but that the maintenance for their engineering plan would be anything that's in the right of way would be the responsibility of the town. Anything that's not on private land would be the responsibility of Greystone.
Yeah, I think that's how the agreement is set up, and I might have to get back to some of the details, but what I understand it is they're a homeowners association, so they've got some of that that's going to be on private land, some of it's going to be in the public area. And if I'm recalling, I haven't reviewed the proposed agreement since last year when we sent it to them, but I think it was split up where homeowners were responsible for what's on homeowner land, and then what's in the right of way is responsibility of the town. So I think that's how that's set up, but I would have to figure out why it would be different for a special assessment district, but that's the advice that I got from the attorney. In most instances, they do seem to be a bit different.
Okay. Do you have any information from the state about what to do with the 10-1 deadline? I know you were CC'd on an email today, like, do we just ignore it? Like, her advice was to, basically let the, probably Terry Purcell know we are working towards this. So should the town send some sort of letter with a summary of what's going on right now, just so they know, that we're working on it, and anyone listening, we have not been, we've been trying to comply. We're trying to figure this out. The state didn't let us know till just over a year ago. So there just hasn't been times for us to do what they need us to do, and then to not allow us to have these funds because they didn't notify us, even though they knew about this since 2020, is really unfair. One thing I'd like to speak to is, and I know this kind of gets off on a tangent, but this disconnection and the amount of impervious surface. We're all, the few of us that have been pretty involved in this are feeling that the engineering plan is lacking transparency and lacking important information in the disconnection and the amount of impervious surface. As an example, and I unfortunately wasn't there, but when you did the walkthrough in our neighborhood, Andres figured out there was something naturally happening, and he was able to remove a whole chamber because of that. There's also a similar natural thing happening at the end of Jonav, but they never went there and looked at it. I put it on the survey. I've let them know about it. So I think at some point we'd like, when it's appropriate, like to revisit that with him because it just seems like the data isn't there. The data is confusing. There's conflicting information in the data. And are we over engineering this more than we need to, which obviously means more money and cost to everybody, everyone in town, not just the Southview people, because the town owns a certain percent of this. So at some point before the engineering plan gets approved, I guess would like to try to do that with the engineer. Has he been paid anything yet
Yes, we've been paying him.
by the town, and then the town gets reimbursed from the state?
Well, so
Or has the state released some money?
we've been paying as we go. And then, yeah, what the idea was, once we submit the NOI, we would then submit all invoices to the state. That's the way they would then reimburse everything.
And the town then the state reimburses the town.
Correct.
Okay, so the town has been paying.
We would pay a lot.
Okay,
Have not submitted for reimbursement until after the NOI. At this point, doesn't
Okay.
look like we'll be able to do that.
Okay.
Can I jump in?
Sure.
First question?
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea. I'll write a letter to Terry and let him know sort of the history of where we are. I don't know
Yep.
what good it'll do, but at least we'll put him on notice that we're trying.
Yep.
Because his hands might be tied unless the deadline gets extended. But yes, I'll formally let him know about that. And certainly we can talk to the engineer about Joan Ave if and when we pick this back up with the engineer, which I assume it's a when, not an if.
yeah, and there's a lot of conflicting information on like the disconnection maps, like initial ones they show, like certain areas are, and then on newer ones they show they aren't, and then, as you know, I brought this up, they're showing pictures of properties that are in Hidden Pines that aren't even in Southview, so there's just like, I don't have a lot of faith that it was very thorough. And like, there's one house that has half the roof disconnected, which seems out of 48 homes, like you'd think there'd be at least more than that, but they never came and walked around my house, so. With that, has the town reviewed the engineering bills carefully? Because, you know, we have concerns with in that particular instance, the quality of the work. It seems like maybe that was subbed out to somebody else, the disconnection like analysis, but I bring up the point that from my understanding, the Greystone engineering bill was like $17,000 and ours is up in the 45, I think now. So that's just something that I would recommend be looked at. Do you have a number of what we're at now?
I think we're 35 to 40 right now,
Okay,
but don't quote me, sorry.
well, I know, yeah,
I can get you the exact number.
okay,
I just don't have it in front of me, but it's in that ballpark, if I recall correctly.
okay, thanks. All
We were
right.
sensing some confusion about what the people who live in Southview wanted, needed, felt should happen, and what the engineering report was saying. That's why we were emphatic about having the meeting up at Southview, so the homeowners can come out and say, if you want to put this here, did you know about that? We tried this, did you know about that? And it seems like, you know, from my perspective, that was a good meeting of the minds and you know, literally pooling the knowledge and resources together.
Yeah.
Going forward.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's hard for us to understand why that meeting didn't happen like the first thing, like, come
Those were new
walk the
rules.
site and see things.
Yeah,
And, and then to speak to this whole special assessment district, this has been a challenging situation and I've
It
probably
has.
invested hundreds of hours in this. We've never been officially asked, will you make an HOA? As far as I know, I don't think we would get the votes to do it. Which means, so say we get half of us or 40% or whatever it is, then how do we impose the costs on the people that are unwilling to join it?
right.
So, the state has put us in this position where our hands are kind of tied, if half of us vote for it and half of us don't, then what do I do? Sue my neighbor to make them pay? So my understanding is by them creating this opportunity for a special assessment district that gives us an avenue to cooperate and do this, allows the town to be on the permit and doesn't make us make an HOA, which is very unlikely. So, so at the point, when we get to the point when you want to have that vote or whatever, I guess you would just send letters to everybody and then we have to sign them.
That would be,
Okay.
it would be a vote, would just, would be letters with an agreement.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Sarah? Thanks, Paige.
Hi, this is Sarah. I'm a Southview resident, Sarah Heim. So I just wanted to add a little bit, sort of from my perspective and from speaking to some neighbors on the special assessment district. So first of all, I don't think we're at a point yet where obviously we'd be ready to ask people whether they consent to it. Like Josh said, I think we need a much firmer estimate of total costs so people know what they would be agreeing to. And also, I think Paige expressed some concerns about sort of the current engineering plans. And I think a lot of people would like there to be sort of a closer look at certain things before those are finalized and also before costs are finalized. But I guess I want to generally express my support for at least strongly considering the special assessment district and at least giving us the opportunity to decide whether that's something that we would be interested in and consent to, because it seems like it's the only real path forward here, because like Paige said, I don't think that we're going to get enough people to vote in favor of an HOA. But maybe a special assessment district is something that could be workable, especially if the costs are distributed over a fairly long period of time. And I understand that the legislation that was passed, part of it was to provide for the opportunity for there to be low to zero interest grants and funding available specifically for municipalities to do this type of work, as opposed to like HOAs or individual homeowners. So I just wanted to express those thoughts on this matter.
Okay. Is there anyone else on the call or here in the room who would like to comment on the special assessment district concept or the stormwater 3-acre rule in general?
I just have a question. I think this is probably a Josh question. So it sounds like this is, worth pursuing. Worth pursuing. But we're gonna need a firm. Oh man, we're gonna need a firmer cost. Jesus, can't do this. We can't get there without the engineering. Which
Right, and I'd say we're at least,
how do we do that?
well,
They need the engineering to get the cost. We
Yeah.
want the cost to get the special assessment district, and the town doesn't want to commit without the special assessment district
Yeah.
to get the engineering. So it's like this chicken and an egg.
it really
Right.
is.
So how do we?
Because, and even the engineering that we need to complete to submit the NOI isn't enough to get the cost. We really wouldn't know the cost until we actually went out to bid.
Yeah.
Is final design and then go into the construction, so. It's a good question on the timing, and then we're probably at least 6 months to a year away from getting final design and bidding. So it would take some time,
So
but yeah, how much is the town put in?
it sounds like the town would kind of have to, in good faith, move forward,
Yeah,
and knowing that there is the possibility we would get stuck with the cost of the engineering. Right. In the final design.
yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if maybe there's another, we should look
Okay.
around and see if there's a creative solution to that.
I
but that
understand
does
for all the
seem-
homeowners that come from signing up for a special assessment district, when you
Without-
don't know of
Yeah,
when it's just back of the envelope math is, I would be cautious about doing that also, so
Yes.
I don't expect them to just sign up blindly. But I can also understand that, you know, as a town, we don't want to commit without some district in place, so it's kind of, yeah, I don't know how we get to that finish line.
yeah.
It's kind of accordion knot, isn't it? Paige?
Can we get a ballpark from the engineer of his costs to submit the NOA or final designs, or, you know, like, what's his total cost gonna be?
Yeah, I
You know,
think,
if we're not 75% there, there's not a lot of more risk for the town. If we've got another double of the amount, then,
right.
Yeah.
I think he gave us, I can follow up with him again. I think he did give us that for a previous meeting that was like.
yeah, there was like, it's $14,000 thing, but I don't know if that was to like get to the finish line or not.
No, I think that he was saying that like to get to the NOI was gonna be like around. Actually, you know what? Let me find out. I don't want to
Okay.
say numbers
Thanks.
that I'm out of memory, but I think we can get that. Yeah,
Yeah, cause if
You're
you're
right,
only
this-
another, you know, whatever away. then-
yeah. Right, we're already committed for 40, if it's under 5, not
Right,
that big a
right.
deal. If it's another 100, that's another conversation.
Chelsea?
Thanks. Sorry. I'm gonna leave my camera off. So I just wanted to hop on. I had put something in the chat, but I don't think anybody had seen it quite yet. And the subject that Paige brought up is kind of exactly what I was speaking to when I was asking about this delineation of responsibility. And I guess what I had heard was during the Greystone conversation. I couldn't remember where it had been. And the reason that I bring it up now, and similar to what she had brought up, is based on what I just heard, it sounds like the town has entered an agreement. Like, is there a signed agreement with Greystone that the town will cover the stormwater that is in the town's right of way?
There's not a signed agreement yet, and I would have to, again, I reviewed that. We gave it to them about a year ago. And they were reviewing it, hadn't gotten back to us. I believe that it was split up by where the structures are, where the structure is. I'd have to go back to 100% double check that, and it's a good question about why would the special assessment be set up differently for the maintenance of the structures if it's all in the right of way. I'll have to ask our attorney why, because he set up both of those. So I'd have to ask him like, okay, why is it different with Greystone from Southview? Because it's a good question.
Well, yeah, I would very much like to hear those answers and hear those
Sure.
details, because I think they are pretty pivotal here. I mean, maybe I'm making more of this than it is, and maybe I think Paige is still there, but essentially what this to me sounds like is Greystone and Southview are very similar. The only difference is that Greystone has an association, right? They're both developments that have town roads and private properties. They're both 3-acre sites. If the town enters an agreement with Greystone to cover the cost of installation and maintenance of stormwater facilities that are in the town right of way for that development, then they should do the same for Southview.
So I think.
I don't think that
Yeah, I
there's
don't
a
think it's the
distinction between,
installation.
yeah, I think it would be the maintenance of
Right.
stuff in the town right away. So the installation would be based on the proportion of stormwater impervious surface.
Impermeable.
Where they were located would be separate from
Right.
that,
Yeah,
right? So
I think, yeah, that the installation is split, like you said, but then it's the ongoing maintenance that, if I recall correctly, it's if it's in the right of way, we'll maintain it. If it's on private property, it's Greystone. But I think that the initial cost is split based on impervious. So that, and that's the bigger of the costs between installation and maintenance.
significantly bigger.
Yeah, for
Basic.
sure. Yeah, that's why I'm sort of asking for these clarifications, because
Yeah.
In hearing the conversations during the side conversations during these conversations at select board meetings, the story is like slightly different, and it lies in that nuance. So I definitely appreciate some clarification on that, Josh. Thank you.
Any final thoughts before we move on to our next item? Okay, Our next item on the agenda is probably going to be quick, but we will allow time for questions. It's consideration of entering into opioids class action suits. The town is already participating in the following class action suits against opioid distributors: Janssen, McKinsey, Allergan, CVS, Eva, Walgreens, and Walmart. So you say, well, who aren't we suing? That's the
Wow.
item of the agenda here. This is regarding 2 new class action suits against Purdue and the secondary manufacturers. Our attorney has provided his advice on the settlements. Essentially, the only downside to participating is that if we join the class action, we cannot then bring a separate suit. However, it doesn't seem likely that we would want to file a separate suit. So our best bet would probably be to participate in the class action suits. The complete summary from our attorney and also guidance from VLCT is included in the packet. Does any member of the select board have any questions about this item or comments?
Not a question, but a comment. I don't want people to look at this as, oh, the town of Richmond wasn't affected by this, and here's a big pot of free money. The town of Richmond is paid dearly as a result of opioid addictions with petty crimes, domestic violence, increased police resources, increased hourly time for town employees. And, I could go on and on and on and on. This has cost taxpayers of Richmond dearly, financially, and through horrible things that have happened in our society. So this in no way would make us whole and undo all the evil that's been done. But it would be a very, 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 very small step in restitution to the taxpayers of Richmond.
Okay, well said. You obviously, David, would be in a fairly good position to be able to comment as such, given your line of work. Any other thoughts from members of the board? Any questions about the class action suits we're proposing to join by members of the community? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'm gonna make it, David.
Jay, this is David. I move to authorize the town manager to execute all documents necessary to participate in the settlements with Purdue and the other 8 secondary manufacturers.
This is Caitlin, I'll second it.
And we have a motion made by David Sanders, seconded by Caitlin Filkins, to authorize the town manager to execute all documents necessary to participate in the settlements with Purdue and the 8 secondary manufacturers. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on toward the last couple of items. These will probably also be quick. Next item is consideration of accepting the fiscal year 26 grant in aid. This is an annual grant from the state which provides funding to assist with projects that are mandated by the municipal roads general permit related to stormwater on town roads. The grant is for $33,500. Want to add anything to that? Nope. Any questions from the board? Nope. Is there any question from member of the audience? Seeing none, please state your name. We need a motion. I'm so sorry. Getting ahead of myself. Is there a motion?
This is Adam. I move to accept the FY26 Grant In Aid.
This is David. I'll second.
We have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander to accept the fiscal year 26 grant in aid. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, aye.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Our final item on the warrant agenda, other than minutes, purchase orders, and warrants, is setting dates for the fiscal year 26 budget meetings. The dates that I'm about to list would work for budget meetings, but we need to know from members of the board if there's any issue with them. Wednesday, October 22nd, Monday, November 10th, and Monday, December 8th. Could people you may already have checked your calendar.
Yeah, one of them I won't be here for, but we had discussed it and
Okay,
it was the least bad option.
okay.
I wouldn't miss those meetings for the world.
Can
Sense no sarcasm.
you repeat the dates again? Just.
Yes,
I know
ma'am.
we already-
Wednesday, October 22nd, Monday, November 10th, and Monday, December 8th.
Yeah, those should be fine.
And they work for me. Have you heard from Bard?
No, but we did
We did go through this last time.
October 22nd was the preferred, the one in October was the one that there was a few conflicts on. And October 22nd, as Adam said, seemed to be the least bad.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
Move to set special meetings for the select board for the purpose of working on the FY27 budget on Wednesday, October 22nd, Monday, November 10th, and Monday, December 8th.
This is David, I'll second.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We have a motion from Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander, to set special meetings of the select board for the purpose of working on the fiscal year 27 budget on Wednesday, October 22nd, Monday, November 10th, and Monday, December 8th. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And J.I. Okay, we will now move into minutes, purchase order, and warrants.
Before we go into minutes, purchase orders and warrants, I just want to say something before we get to that. I have just been collecting my thoughts a bit, and I wanted to say on record, and I wrote some notes down just to make sure I say this in the way that I want to, but we started this meeting saying that all are welcome here, and our sign says that all are welcome here, and Kara was not welcome in this room tonight, and that's unacceptable. There are a few people in this town who show up here the majority of the time and actively participate with a highly informed background. It's hard to sit in this room and face a board and speak your voice with the town watching. We're all under the radar of our small town. It's especially hard to sit in this room as a woman and watch another woman be silent and silenced. And I've been sitting back here a little bit in shock of what's happened. And I'm sorry I didn't speak up, Kara, in the very beginning. But honestly, I've been taken aback. My first priority is Kara and making sure that she's okay. And I hope that she is. It's taken a minute to collect my thoughts and figure out what I want to say. But more than anything, I hope that Kara will give us an opportunity to regain her trust and come back to speak her voice. And I think it's important that she does, because her voice is very much valued. Kara and I don't always agree. And because of that, I greatly appreciate her input. It's important to be challenged, to be open to being wrong or misinformed. And to me, that's the only way to confidently make an informed decision with the input of the full spectrum of views from the public. Kara is extremely well-versed in local government and historical Richmond issues, and I don't want what happened this evening to deter people from this town to come and speak their opinion and actively participate. I'd like to see Kara come back, and I would like to see folks feel safe in this room to speak their voice.
Appreciate what you said, Caitlin. Jean, would you like to comment?
I would, thank you. It's Jean Haskin, and I just want to say I agree with Caitlin 100%. I think it's very difficult as a woman to address an all-male board and then to be yelled at and basically told that your opinion doesn't matter, just, oh, it's just you acting like you. So that's kudos to Caitlin for calling that out. What I really wanted to say was I apologize when you guys were discussing item E. I was being distracted, and so I missed what happened with the all are welcome sign issue, because it's something that I really don't agree with. I don't agree that all are welcome in Richmond. I don't want drug dealers moving into town. I don't want criminals moving into town. I think welcome to Richmond should be more than sufficient. And so again, what happened? I'm sorry I missed it.
So the agenda item was about whether the town needed a permit for the sign, not necessarily, or not the content of the signs. And we reached out to the planning and zoning director, Keith Oborn, and he responded that the town does not need a permit for the sign. The town is actually exempt from permits on town property. So that was it.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that was the extent of the discussion and the decision at that point.
Okay. And so if I want to have a sign put on the town lawn, I can come to the select board and say, I'd like a, abortion kill sign, or, pro-abortion, anti-abortion, anti-Semitic. Can I get any sign I want posted on the town lawn?
So the way that the law works with that is that this is speech of the select board and it's not an open public forum. So I think if a select board member says, okay, yes, I'd like to put the sign up, and the board agrees that, yes, that is a message that they want to send, either a sign or a flag, then the board can vote to do so. I suppose that could mean that somebody could approach a select board member with an idea, and it could be brought to the meeting for discussion by the board. But I just want to be clear, it doesn't open it up to any and all messages. There are other areas, not in Richmond that I'm aware of, but other towns have what's called a public forum, and anybody's allowed to put anything they want in that area, but that is not the case in Richmond on the town center.
Okay, and then my last question is about the fire department. I was told that the town of Richmond refused to allow the fire department to put a banner out in front of the town center, I guess, saying that they were looking for volunteers. Is that accurate?
No, that's a good question. We got to revisit that. I think we talked about that a month or so ago. It never came to the board, I don't think. But I think we talked about that internally with zoning. But now I think we've gotten a lot more clarity on signage at the town center in the last couple of weeks. So, Gene, that's a good question. I'll revisit that with the fire department with zoning. Thank you for reminding me.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Jane. I'd like to follow up with Caitlin. Caitlin, is it your opinion I should leave the select board entirely?
No, that is not my opinion. I appreciate you resigning. I wanted to make sure that I'm speaking to Kara and her voice and
Well, I appreciate your outside point of view, because I have been sitting here all evening very upset with myself, as I rightly should be. And the question foremost to my mind is whether I'm capable and suitable to represent this town in any way. Because frustration of the sort that I showed tonight is inexcusable.
Jay, there's a big difference between making a mistake and not acknowledging it, and making a mistake and owning it. And making a mistake and owning it is a lot harder, but it also shows correction. I have sat in your chair and I've said things that I shouldn't have said out of anger, and it hurt. You know, that's not the person I want to be. And it's hard to acknowledge a mistake was made. But I tend not to make the same mistake often. Not going to say it's never happened. But some lessons in life are hard. Some lessons in life sting, but owning the mistake, learning from the mistake, and moving on makes you a much better person.
Well, I appreciate that, but I think my judgment has been severely called into question tonight.
I think there's a distinction between representing the town as a member of the board and then maybe directing the discourse of the board throughout the entire meeting. And I don't think there's anything that you did that calls your participation in the entire board into question at all, Jay, is my opinion.
That's my
You
opinion
feel
as
that way,
well.
then I would,
I'll be thinking about it over the next.
I would contemplate that yourself, but from my perspective, that was never something that occurred to me at all. So
in the moment, I think you did what you thought was right, and upon reflection, I think you could probably think of better choices that could have been made.
Well, I don't think a lot of thought went into it.
One analogy that I always make is planes land at airports, right?
Usually.
ideally,
Pilots don't like totally freak out because they missed the airport. Autopilot is wrong 99.999% of the time. It's constantly readjusting, constantly reconfiguring. So if you froze the trajectory of every aircraft on autopilot right now, it would totally miss the airport by miles. But autopilot constantly recorrects and adjusts, constantly recorrects, and there's no such thing as perfect. It's constant recorrection. And you need to use that approach in life. You will make mistakes.
Well,
You need to acknowledge it, learn from it, and move on.
one of the things that upsets me the most about my actions is that it was, as Caitlin has ably pointed out, in such glaring contradiction to the all welcome message.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be very pointed here. I don't think that you need to, but I wouldn't, it's not my opinion that you need to leave the select board. I agree with what's Adam saying. I think that you're an elected member of the select board for a reason. I appreciate your voice here. I think the town appreciates your voice here. I think the course of action of resigning as the chair was appropriate for what has happened. And if you want to continue to reflect on that and make your own choices, that's great. I appreciate this conversation, and I want to make sure, because I felt this. I feel this time. I felt this when we originally talked about the Black Lives Matter sign with a big room full of people. And I'm going to be very pointed. It's not about you. It's about Kara and how she's leaving right now and how she's feeling. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about how you're feeling. So I'm sorry.
I appreciate what you're saying. If making amends to Kara would be first in my mind, I simply am not sure how I'm going to do that, but I am happy to apologize to her face in any form she may choose. Okay, Jean, you have your hand up.
Yes, I want to go on record. Jean Haskin is saying, I personally would like to see Jay resign from the select board. And the reason I say this is because this is not the first time he's been rude to Kara or other women or other people in select board meetings. I've been coming to select board meetings pretty regularly for the last year or so. And I have seen many instances where I felt Jay was really out of line. As a matter of fact, there was another instance where I actually called him on it in a chat. And so my feeling is we don't need people on the select board who are rude to the people who are paying his salary. Any other employer, if he was working for Green Mountain Coffee Roasters or any other employer and HR heard what he did the number of times that he's done it, he would have been out the door a long time ago. So anyhow, I just want to go on record as saying that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. As I said, Jean, I tend to agree with you. I question my suitability for being on the board if I cannot control my temper, even when I have been talking about how all are welcome. That irony does not escape me. So I will be thinking about it. I may return at the second meeting in October with a letter of resignation, or maybe submitting it before then. We shall see. Our next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. Did anybody have any questions about the minutes from our previous meeting?
Meeting, right?
Yeah, the September 2nd.
This is Adam. I make a motion. We approve the minutes for the, was it 9/2/2005 meeting?
This is David, I'll second.
That is the correct date, right?
Yes.
9/2. So you made the motion?
Yep.
Okay. So motion was made by Adam Wood, seconded by David to approve the minutes of the September 2nd meeting of the select board. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Our next item is a purchase order.
This is Adam. I move to approve purchase order number 5297 to Mount Mansfield Unified School District for their first quarter taxes in the amount of $2,254,208.59.
This is Caitlin, I'll second.
We have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by Caitlin Filkins to approve the quarterly taxes to Mount Mansfield Unified School District in the amount of $2,254,208.59.
$208.59.
Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
Jay, aye.
And again, this is money that the town collects in taxes. The town does not set or spend the education tax. This is paid with the property taxes collected by the town and given to the Mount Mansfield Unified Union School District. So this board has nothing to do with setting that amount or collecting that amount. The town collects it overall with the property taxes, and this is the education portion.
Okay. We now can review the warrants. Are there any questions about the warrants for tonight's meeting? No.
No.
Oh, we got 4th of July one in there too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's a small 4th of July warrant. That's for It's for, I think, vote prize of $75.
Cool. We need to move those separately.
No, you can just do all the warrants at once unless there's a specific one you do not want to
This
include.
is Adam. I move to approve the warrants as presented.
This is David. I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion made by Adam Wood, seconded by David Sander to approve the warrants as presented. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. Okay, moving on into items for next time's agenda. Electing a new board chair and vice chair. Other topics?
Follow up on Southview. Questions from tonight?
I imagine, I don't know if we'll have any more information, but I imagine that the police
Yeah.
director
Mhm.
of the department is gonna need to be a continual check-in item. Probably vary in size and length depending on the week.
Sure.
Probably a reminder of the upcoming budget meetings.
Good point.
There's something else I just,
We will also have, I think I'll have, the phase corner safety study.
Cool.
Have that to have your board review.
Okay. If you have any other topics, please be in contact with Adam or Josh or both. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adam, second.
We have a motion made by David Sanders, seconded by Adam Wood to adjourn. Please state your name and your vote.
Caitlin, I.
David, I.
Adam, I.
And Jay, aye. We are adjourned.